Did you ever wonder? I do. Did you ever wonder why the sun always rises, but the stars never fall? Why dry land is never satisfied by water? And why fire never says enough?
The wonder of we having authority to be sons of God. And so I'm, over the last few days, been studying John chapter 1, verses 11 and 12. And, the culmination of that is what we just discussed here, that wonder of having the authority of being a son of God. And what does that exactly look like? But before you get there, I, spent a little time in 11, which says, he came unto his own, and his own received him not. And interestingly, the night before I was working on that verse, I watched an episode of The Chosen where Jesus was in Nazareth and, playing ball with his friends, which he wasn't all that good at, dropped the ball a few times. And that night he read from the prophet Isaiah 61 and declared himself the Messiah, at which point, of course, everybody freaked out. How could this guy who can't even play ball be the Messiah, right? Or this man that I grew up with, Mary's son, all this stuff, because they were so familiar. And what I saw in that episode, they did a spectacular job of illustrating to me that I had never really considered, was how for Jesus, he was desperate to save his friends and the people he grew up with, but they wouldn't believe in. He said, if you don't believe me, I can't save you. And then went on to explain, how the Gentile woman was the one that Elijah, gave the flour and oil to, and it was a Gentile leper that got healed by Elisha. And again, he was making the point that, man, please believe. And the challenge is they didn't receive him because, they were too familiar. And I thought about that all for a couple days. Like, man, how many minutes of each day am I not receiving him? He's knocking at the door, but because I'm too familiar with my circumstances, I think I know what I'm doing. And, so God had me study, that idea of no. We talked about that a few episodes ago, that apart from me, you can do nothing. And of course, this idea of receiving him becomes all that much more critical. And so that left me to this point of like, man, I need to receive God, not just obviously the one time, but on a moment by moment basis, I need to receive him. And if I do that, then you get verse 12, right? He says, as many as received him, to them gave he power. Actually, it says in the King James Version, to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. But that word power, I'm very familiar with what the word power in Hebrew looks like. And so I went and looked at it in Greek, and then to the Septuagint of how they did it. And clearly, to me, what the Greek and the Septuagint are pointing to is not the idea of power like dunamis, that dynamite kind of power of Greek. What they're talking about here is authority. And it's a completely different thing from my perspective. Yes, people in authority have power, but they have authority and, when in charge, take command, kind of thing. You got to do that. And so, I was thinking about what does that exactly look like? But before I get to that, it says, even to them, that believe on his name, which, that in Hebrew has to do with this concept of amen. like here, my soul has totally in agreement with this name is the name above all names, that this name is the name of salvation, that this name is my salvation, right? And so all that stuff comes into account before we get back to having the authority, because you don't get the authority if you don't really believe. And you'll note that the people that really can take charge are the people that really believe in what they're doing, or they believe in their cause. All those things just absolutely matter. And the interesting thing is God is in a position to give you that faith. Okay, and I'm going to go back to a story. You may have heard me tell it before, but I thought about it this morning as what it's like to be in authority as a son of God. And I go back to, when I had failed as a general manager and I was looking for answers like, how in the world can I turn this Dodge store around? And I prayed and leaving out some of the details of that. Eventually God came to me and he said, Robbie, when all's said and done, it won't matter how many cars you sell or how many or how high your CSI, your customer satisfaction index is. The only thing that will really matter in the end is how many people did you really help? Well, once I'd clearly gotten that message, then I walked into a sales meeting where I had complete authority. In other words, I knew that I knew the right answer to how to get the dealership to go in the right direction. And once you have that authority, essentially, it's given to you because of a belief in what you've heard and what you're doing. And when you really, really, really believe in what you're doing or believe that you have the answer, you have great authority. When you don't believe it, you have you don't have any effectiveness as far as I'm concerned. And so interestingly, what I shared that day in that sales meeting had tremendous effect. What I shared the following Monday to the service department had a tremendous effect because I said it in complete authority. Yeah, I had the legitimate authority as a general manager, but I don't know that the people would believe in me unless I completely believed in my own message. And as it was, God gave me the authority, God gave me the message, and I was able to deliver it in a way that people understood it and people obeyed it, essentially, that they took on that whole vision of helping people rather than selling cars or selling service or whatever it is they were thinking they were doing for customer satisfaction. The whole idea was just simply to figure out how to help somebody and go about doing that once they present themselves to you. Of course, it bore tremendous fruit, and I used that same message in every job I've had since then. And each time I say it in complete authority that this is my job. If I'm in the business of selling or helping, whatever it is that I look like, whether I'm in radio or I'm in the car business, if I go about just trying to help people, it bears much fruit, and I do that with complete faith that I'm doing what God would have me do. And so, it's pretty cool to me that as the minutes go by, right, in every minute that I want to receive Jesus, at that minute that I truly believe in what he's telling me, then I will have messages and I will have authority in order to be the husband, the father, the radio show host, the minister, the pastor, all those things that God has given me, the titles, but I have no authority unless I have if I've received what it is God has given me in the moment in order to move forward with that message. And it's so much more effective, when it gets back to that idea. I've said it many, many, many times. The first and most important sale is the one you make to yourself. In other words, do you really believe you heard from God? Do you really believe that Jesus is there with you? Do you really, really believe that this is about his kingdom coming? All those things have got this idea of faith behind them, this idea of belief, and that idea of amen and amen, right? What an opportunity we have to be his sons, the sons of God. It's absolutely unbelievable what doors that opens up to be God's sons. Thanks for listening.
Do you ever wonder?